Alright, this is gonna be a demonstration on how to do the double exposure photos. So, first thing you want to do is, at this point you should have done this by now though. But basically you're gonna look for a portrait photo. So again, this would include a picture where it has like the person's head, the neck, the shoulders, and then you want to have like a picture of, or the second picture that you want to combine it with. So, in essence though, we're gonna put this image within the portrait. And this is a unique way of doing photo collage in Photoshop known as double exposure photos, or in this case, we're going to do like double exposure photo because it's like two different photos that were combined together. But this is like a technique that was used in like traditional photography. That's more used now with more of like the digital photography. So real important when you guys are choosing your portrait photos. You want to make sure to have like really good lighting in the photos. So you should have like distinct highlights, distinct shadows on the face. Okay, if there's too much light or there's too much shadows on the face. If you go like too extreme with one or the other, in some cases, it may be a little bit harder for the second picture to show up within the portrait. But if you have a good balance between the two, then it should be fine. And also another thing too is when you guys are picking out your images, your portraits, just make sure that you have a good contrast between like the background and then the actual portrait in itself. So like this black shouldn't blend in with the hair. Since there are like these little white highlights around the edges compared to the background, it should be able to cut out pretty easily though. But in some cases, so if you have like a dark hair and a dark background, it may be a little bit harder to use the quick selection tool to cut out some of those parts. Okay, but again, if it's not working out too well though, then you may need to do a different portrait. All right, so what we're gonna do first is we're gonna actually click and drag this image here, and we're just gonna drag it into Photoshop. So we have it now in Photoshop. So I actually do have to reset some of my tools here. So I'm gonna go to Windows, Workspace, Photography. So the reason why I'm doing this is because actually I set my settings back to default because there's gonna be some things you may have to do on the computer that hasn't been done yet. So now we have your portrait on here. So very first thing that we're gonna have to do is we're gonna have to create a white background for the portrait. So there's gonna be a couple of hotkeys that I want you to do. So if you hold the command key, and then press A as an apple, that's gonna select your entire picture here. And then when you're looking at your colors, you're gonna just make sure this bottom part here, the background color is as a white color, and then you can keep that as black. But we're going to do Command X as in Xerox. Command X, that's going to cut out your image. Okay, so we're going to cut the image out, and it should make it that background color, so that white color that we had here. And then we're going to do Command V as in Valentine to paste the image. Okay, so now like when we cut the portrait out, though, we'll have like a white background. If we didn't do this ahead of time, though, we would have had kind of like a clear background, or a background that wouldn't show up. Okay, so once we cut out the background though, once we create a background for your picture, so I'm just clicking on the eyeball tool just to show you what's in the back. Then we're gonna use this direct selection tool, and I'm just gonna make the brush a little bit bigger with the bracket keys, and I'm just gonna select the face. So, whatever you cut out though, you just gotta make sure to select it. Okay, so we're cutting out the face, so I'm just going to select the face. And if you look at it though, it's actually selecting parts of my background too. So the reason why it's doing this is because a lot of these colors are very, very similar to one another. Like these greens are like the same tone as the background, so that's kind of the reason why it's doing this. So some cases that may end up happening, but you can hit this minus brush up here. The plus one selects it, the minus will deselect it. So I'm just going to deselect it a little bit though, around the edges of the hair. And again, it's like not really doing that too great of a job on there. But I'm going to try to deselect some of those parts. I'm just doing like a single click for these parts here. But again, you have to go like back and forth though, especially if the image isn't really that clear. And also when you're like doing little parts of the hair, try to get as much of the hair as you can when you're selecting it. There is a tool where you can refine the edges even more, which I'm going to show you in a bit. So I'm just selecting the portrait here, Just make sure to select all those parts. So like, the more work you do on here, the cleaner the cuts will be. All right, so this is pretty good what I have here. So I'm gonna click on select and mask. So I clicked on select and mask. Okay, so this is gonna be like extra tools that are gonna allow you to cut out the image. So there's gonna be a couple of changes I'm gonna have you do to the settings here. So you gotta click on the view here, change it to overlay. So now that we changed the overlay, all those red parts in the picture is gonna be what's gonna be cut out. As you go down here, check Smart Radius. So Smart Radius is gonna allow you to clean it up a little bit more. Go to Output Settings down here. Click on Decontaminate Colors. So, and then New Layer with Layer Mask. Okay, so you want to make sure to have all these things open, because when we do the refine, it's just gonna these tools are gonna help to clean it up more. The Smart Radius, the Decontaminate Colors. Click on Remember Settings. So next time when you do this, the computer should automatically remember these settings on here. And again, some of you guys may not need to do this because you may have done it before when you've used the Select Mask tool. Okay, one other thing too is I forgot to select this bottom part here. So I'm just going to select it here real quick, but this is basically the quick selection tool again, but we won't actually click on this one that says Refine Edge Brush Tool. So I'm going to click on Refine Edge Brush Tool, and I'm going to make my brush a little bit bigger. You can also change your brush sizes up here. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to just select these parts of the hair, the edges. So the Refine Edge Brush Tool, it actually cleans up the hair by itself. So like these parts here, if we were to leave it as is, it would just only cut out that part. This part is going to clean up those really detailed edges. So I'm just going over those parts on the hair, and I'm gonna leave that part alone because that's actually part of the middle of the hair. You're only refining the edges. Okay, otherwise, if you were to do this manually by hand, it could take you hours to do this, maybe even days. But we're gonna let the Photoshop do that part for us. These parts here, like the ear and the neck, like we don't really need to cut those parts out too much. We don't really need to cut them out also. This is like fine as is, but you can see how the hair is a little bit more clean. And these tools here, like they help to clean it up a little bit more. So if you're kind of like wondering what they do, they're like another tool to clean it up. So once we're happy with how it looks, we're just gonna click OK. And then it's going to cut out the image for us. Now, some of these parts did get a little bit fuzzy and a little bit weird. So, if you wanted to, though, you can go back to your layer mask here. And the white is the portrait. The black is what they cut out. So I'm actually just going to go over the edges a little bit more with the white. This is optional, though. If your image actually cuts out perfectly fine, you may not need to do this. But I'm just going to do this for my picture, though. So I'm going to clean up a little bit more. Bring out a little bit more of the head, the hair. Just give it more of like that natural look to it. All right. This is pretty good though for like the portrait that I had. So once you're done with that part, you have your layer mask selected here. We're actually going to duplicate this layer here. So we have another copy. Actually, before we do that though, we're going to have to make this image black and white. So just change the image, or actually when you go to the image here, you may have this layer mask selected. So click on the actual image in itself. Image adjustments and desaturate. Now if you're in the other one though, if you did the same thing, the other one, it won't give you that option to desaturate because that's the layer mask. All right. Again, we have like the original image here. We'll just keep it there just in case we may need to change some things, but we'll duplicate this layer. So you just right click on this part here, duplicate layer, and now we have like a copy of that layer. All right. So now we have to add the second image on there. So we're just going to click and drag it onto here. And I'm just going to make it big so it kind of fills in both those spots. So we'll just leave it like this, just to see how things look. But we may need to change and adjust a little bit. But what you're going to do here though is you want to have the portrait on the bottom. And then one of these layer masks here that you created, we're actually going to drag this all the way to the top here. Okay, so we're going to drag it on the top here. and then we're going to drag this on the bottom. So basically you have the layer mask picture on the top with the first image, and then you have like the original portrait you drew here on the second one. And then we can actually delete this. We don't need this. So the layer mask that we dragged, we can delete it. All right, but now we have like this image here and then the portrait down here. So if you looked at it really carefully though, what happened is like the image here is, we cut out the pretty much like the portrait and how it looks. And what we're going to do here is we're going to have to use the, I'm making a video right now. Yeah, give me 1 second. It's okay. All right, and then this part here, we're going to have like the, you can either change it to lighten or to multiply. Okay, but just to give you a general idea of what these things do, and you can actually move this image around. So if you unclick the lock button here and you use the move tool, you can actually move the image around here. See like where things are. You can also rotate it too. I'm gonna actually rotate it a little bit this way because I kind of like it better with them in contrast. So you can really play around with like the size, the rotating, and how it looks. But multiply, what that does is, let me explain what these tools do. You're either going to choose multiply or line. But basically how it works though is the multiply will bring out the shadows in the picture. So you look at the portrait, we only see like the shadows here. So your images are only going to show up in where those highlights are. So like where the whites and grays are, that's going to be the only parts where the image will show up. Now, if you click on lighten though, it's going to do the complete opposite. Or it's going to do like the opposite, or it's actually the other way around. The multiply is the image is going to show up in the highlighted areas, so like your highlights and those gray areas. The lighten will do the opposite. That's going to show up in the dark areas. Your whites and grays are going to be what's going to show up the most. So you gotta have to pick either or depending on like the picture that you have. If it's like a lighter image, there's more highlights in the picture, there's more like light in the picture, you can probably pick the multiply one. But if it's like very dark, like in this instance, like this portrait's very dark, there's a lot of grays and shadows in it, I'm gonna have to use the light version. Okay, so you have to kind of like pick and choose like which one you want to use. And from this point here though, it's like we're just rearranging the picture, maybe resizing a little bit more. Should make this a little bit bigger on here. And that's essentially what it is right here. Now the only thing is, it's like I can't really see his portrait that well. So, we may have to play around with the opacity a little bit. Maybe, just take a look at the composition a little bit more. I'm gonna just lower the opacity a little bit just so you can see a little bit better. But that's generally the idea though. Now I don't think we really need this picture of the Hulk again on the right side. Like the whole idea I was trying to do is like, Bruce Banner kind of like dealing with this Hulk self. So maybe it might be better if we move the picture of just only Bruce Banner. And like putting him like right here. Maybe get a little bit bigger. Otherwise we would have to just like erase that part. But maybe like something like this though. I think this is a really interesting image here. And, like this would be like a very interesting collage that would work real well with this picture here. If you want to, you could fade it out a little bit more. So, essentially this is like what you have to do. You kind of just think about like the positioning, the placement of your images, how you photo collage it. And also, like what other types of images that you want to use. Another thing too you can do too is, after you're happy with like the placement of the image and where it is, you can actually drag this layer mask down here, and essentially when we dragged it down there, it should give me an option to merge them. I guess it's not giving me that option. It's really weird. Oh, yeah, connect them together. So I'm gonna connect them back together. I'll drag it here. Oh. Yeah, it's not giving me that option. It's supposed to give you an option though when you delete this layer mask. If you want to merge them together. Let me see. Add mask to selection. No, that's not it. I'm going to see how to do this. Well, we can just leave it as is though. But like one thing you want to do too is you actually click on the original image,